All right, what's up, everyone? Happy Friday. Coming at you with another weekly recap. This week ended up being really awesome. Finally got some resolve in the quantum top, and we got gold starting to roll over. So there's a couple good trades to end the week on. Kind of spread out. I did have quite a bit of more small cap trades this week, and a lot more large caps for like overnight swing type play. So let's jump into it. To start the week, we are playing Q short, TQs. So it was just a week open for this, and what I was looking for was some kind of signal for a reversal setup, right? And what we did, we opened above VWAP, and then we closed below on a pretty solid offer. The bids were getting hit pretty hard, sold down. I took it through the low of day, or the opening range break there, and was able to catch a nice leg lower on it. And of course it got rebitted towards the end of the day. Ended up later in that trade I stopped above VWAP, but it was on this day here. So we had the big sell off on Friday, and then Monday came in, and I was looking for some more downside because we were kind of back testing these moving averages. So I was looking for that back test and then a fail. And obviously the market's still very resilient, and we did get an initial flush lower, but then obviously it rebitted later in the day. So I did catch a nice little leg lower for an opening drive play, and then stopped out once it started to reclaim VWAP again. Now, if you wanted to play this a little bit tighter, you could have used this lower high here, these little pivots as a stop. I wanted to give it a little bit more room just in case it wanted to backtest VWAP and then move lower. But if you did want to play it a little bit tighter, you had this little pivot high here just above 98 that you could have used. All right, next we had WWR. This was just off the scanner. Had a really nice move that started to accelerate some wider candles. Just very clean, linear price action where volume started to come in, and we were starting to get very separated from VWAP. So on this push, we got a push higher that failed pretty hard, and a seller jumped in. I took a position there and then added when it actually made the turn. And then we just got a nice little fade into the close. Obviously, at this time of the day, getting back to VWAP probably wasn't in the cards. So I just took the trades that I could get and was hoping for maybe a flush or so into, after the close. Sometimes you get some orders that come in, and I just flatlined. So I cut the position once it started kind of getting bidded back up into 350 there. All right, so that was WWR. This was a real pain here. Was trading this in the after hours on the 15th, and the idea here was that we had the initial pop, and then we were starting to make a second leg. It started showing a little bit of weakness, so I started my short and ended up stopping out when it reclaimed immediately. Tried to get back in, and it kept popped back up for another leg. So it has two L's on it, albeit they were pretty small, but it was still two in a row. So I wanted to see this set up a little bit better for another entry, maybe more extension from VWAP and like a clear seller. It started looking good again back in the 12 areas where I did get a short again for my third and final attempt. Got a little pullback, and this thing was just very strong. There was no deep pulls coming in. It held the 10-day again. And once I saw it popping up above the prior bar high, I started to cut it because I didn't want to take another loss on it, and it wasn't trading very well. So I just ended up taking a loss on this one in the after hours. So that was Omer, OMER. Oklo was really awesome. We had been watching this, just one of the big moves. For the past month or so, it's been a huge runner, very hot name, very in play, and it was just starting to get very extended. So we had this big leg here, consolidation, pull back into the moving averages. This is actually a really good look here for a long, this deep flag look. It broke out and then had a really big leg higher, and it just started getting really frothy up here. We're starting to get super wide range candles, and then we had this big gap higher, and this was the day that I was trading it. We had a push that failed, and then had the big down day with some follow through. So I was trading on that day. It was starting to stall out, just a lot of back and forth. So I actually started here and was prepared to add if we started getting back above 190s or so. Kind kind of towards high a day. And I didn't get quite to where I wanted it, and ended up rolling from there. I could have added at low a day. I just wasn't feeling super aggressive with it. I was rather let it see it play out, or short into strength instead of against low day, because we've been seeing a lot over the last couple of weeks, especially in RGTI. These low day breaks are just getting rebitted all the time, and in fact this one got rebitted right here. So I didn't want to be overly aggressive on it, but it ended up fading off very well. Caught a great leg on this and held some overnight for continuation play that ended up trading around as well, which I'll go over in just a minute. But that ended up being a really nice play, one of the better trades of the week for me on Oklo. And this was no specific entry. I think what I was just seeing is, we're putting in lower highs and putting a little base right here around 184. And so once I saw it put in the third lower high, I figured that this was going to hold here and then go. We did end up getting a little bit of a bounce back above VWAP, but it ultimately failed and then rolled from there. So that was just kind of the thought with this entry. SMSI was another after hours small cap short. Got a big pop on some news, and it kind of stalled out. Saw a seller stepped in, I took it short, and we got a quick flash up that kind of put in another big wick, and it looked pretty good. I actually got filled here when it reopened, because I thought it was going to turn on this candle, so I added on the open of it, and we did get another little push higher. And if it would have kept going, I probably would have stopped out, but it put in a nice wick again, and then we got another, the sellers were still in control here and stalling it out, so I added it again, and then we started to get the flush back below VWAP, and it really opened up a few candles later where I was covering into the like 110, 105 area where I took most of it off. Then it got rebitted again and popped up back above VWAP where I cut the balance of my position. So just easy trades. These, they're not going to be home runs. Some of them will be, but these ones, like base hits, they add up over time, and they're a high probability little scalp trade that you can look to build some cash flow with. So that was SMSI. Mira, same thing. This one gave me a little bit of trouble at the beginning, but then ended up working. I took a stop here, jumped back in on this candle, added, took some trims, and then it rebitted again, but then it got stuffed pretty quickly. So I was actually adding into this move, because at this point we were about on the fourth leg of the move. So this was kind of an aggressive add here, and then I added again on the turn, and then we finally got a nicer move back into VWAP where I was covering in like the 240s, 250s to get back to green on the name. So that was Mira, M-I-R-A. This was a wild one. I think it was a Japan name. I don't even think it had news. It was just running in the after hours. And once I saw it make this huge candle and we put in a big topping tail, this was someone getting squeezed out. Someone was in it short, probably a good sized position, and it skipped like $3 or $4 immediately and then got stuffed really hard. So someone had to bail on this position. And usually after a big player like that gets squeezed, it's a good indication that the top is in. The probability of it getting back above 11 here of this highs is pretty low. So on the close or on the open of the next candle, I took a short, right? And I got immediate resolution in my favor. I trimmed some off in the 7 and 6s. It bounced back up, and I was adding back into it with the idea that the probability of this making new highs is very low. So I was just kind of adding into this little position. It acted like it wanted to go here, and then ultimately started to fail again, giving me another clue that this was probably done. So then I got to move back into VWAP where I covered most of my position. And then once it popped back up above the 10-day, I just cut my little trailer. But this was a wild one. I know a couple guys that got squeezed really hard in this. So you just got to be really careful, especially in the after hours. There's no halts. These things are a little bit thinner. They can skip a lot really quickly, and you can get a big loss. So you got to be careful and mind your sizing and your entries, okay? Because they can get a little dicey. But that was a good one. RYOJ. This one was a little bit of a headache at first. So this was in the pre-market yesterday, and I was building a short position into this move. It was a big pop, right? And I did get a little bit of a fill off. And then I was looking at something else. I think I was going through an email, and this thing just popped out of nowhere and actually had an open order to short more. I should have canceled it, but so I got filled more, and then it was immediately up into 4. So I got skipped a ton of slippage, and I had to bail on it, and then it started topping off again. With these big volumes and price accelerations like this, it's usually a good clue that a top's coming, right? I talk about that a lot. And then we started putting in a lot of wicks up here. So I got back in and was able to make back the money eventually. Like, I didn't get back to green on the name until I was taking these covers, because I had to take a pretty good loss here. But it ended up working out nicely. I got a nice ad here on the back tested VWAP, and then it was nothing but weakness out of the gates on this name. So I was happy to get back to green on it. Sometimes they can be a bit of a headache. If I was able to stop here instead of add, it would have been a much better position. It would have been a pretty big green one instead of getting back to green on it. But that it happens. So that was WHWK. Just got to be more mindful of open positions and stopping out when you need to be stopping. Because this could have easily, if I didn't stop here and was adding more and it did another leg, it could have turned into a really big loss instead of being managed properly. We're taking stops through the highs and stuff. All right, so what do we got next? Okay, so this is the follow-up to Oklo. On this day. So this was the day I showed you before, and then this was on this day. Had a little bit of a gap up that ultimately failed, and I took a little bit more of a cover, and then on the bounce higher I added into this move. I had very serious doubts that this was going to make new highs and climb higher, so I was comfortable adding above VWAP, and then we did get the nice resolve lower in a very nice leg lower. So I was covering down into 160s and then into the 158s. And I ended up carrying it. So this was yesterday, and then today I came in with just a really small trailer in Oklo. So that ended up working out really well. And I took it, I actually stopped out on it today. I had a nice pop on some news, and I took it off in the pre-market. And it ended up being a really nice trade. So that was great to see. Some nice follow through on it. Oklo. This was this morning. I was trying to play a Bitcoin bounce. It did end up bouncing. My thought is we've had a really big sustained move lower, and now we're gapping down into a big area of support here around the 60s, and I figured it was going to be a bounce day. It just ended up being a lot choppier than I would have liked. So I was buying on this candle. It tested VWAP, reclaimed it, and was looking pretty strong. So I bought it. And then I added into the next candle on the open, trying to anticipate a move over the 2-minute opening range. And it just kind of chopped around. I did get a trim here, and then it ended up just cascading and couldn't hold a bid. I should have stopped out at low of day, but I wanted to give it time to see if it could hold and get back above. And we ended up having this candle where it just really started to flush. And I was like, all right, I have to cut it here. And then of course I was almost bottom ticked my exit, and it got rebedded really hard and started coming back above VWAP. And I was like, all right, I got to get back in this. If this goes, I'm gonna be upset if I'm not in it. So I started buying it pretty good here in the 59.90s, and it ended up popping really hard and into the high day where I was taking some trims. I had offers out in the 30s and 40s to take more off, and it couldn't get there. So once I saw it starting to fade again, and we had a high day fail, and I just took it off basically at break even. And it did end up trading lower. So yeah, this was just a real tricky one today. It did end up making this leg lower, so I was happy with my exit. But now, obviously, you can see we caught another bid here after it made a new low a day, and we got a really nice move. So it's just tough action all around. When the first 30 minutes were back and forth, and then we finally got, coming into lunch, basically, we got a really nice push. So that's all right. I think I ended up break even on the name, because I had a lot more size on that here than I did here. So I think it was pretty close to break even. So that was a Bitcoin bounce, and then we had GLD. This chart's insane. There's probably a lot more downside to this. Let's get the chart. Oh. So you can see gold's just been on this epic run. You can really see it on the weekly how crazy it's been. I mean, this is a huge move it's been on. The last month, basically since July, it's been nothing but straight up, gapping up, nonstop. And I think we're finally seeing a topping here. We got huge volume today. It was gapping up over 400 in the pre-market, and I was like, I should probably put on a short here, a starter, and I just didn't do it. And obviously we got a really nice move lower. But this trade in the morning, I was kind of mad because I was trading the Bitcoin. I was like, I should have been taking gold short on the opening range break lower here. And I was getting a bit of FOMO on this leg, and ended up we got a nice bounce back into VWAP. So I layered out some orders, got filled into VWAP, and it was having trouble getting back above. And I just thought the probabilities of this getting back above and making a move to 400 or so was very low. So I was happy to add into this VWAP using high a day as my risk. And then I added, as we broke down through this like 390, 350 area, I added into that, and then we got a nice move into low a day where I probably took a quarter of a position off, and then I got a nice fill into here in the 390s, and then ended up stopping out when it came back into VWAP. Got an overfill and just took the rest off. But that was a nice leg here. Was hoping for more. There's still probably, obviously there's still a lot of downside left in it. I was considering buying puts. If we get another big bounce in this back into VWAP, or may consider buying some puts for a couple weeks out. And yeah, so it's around 390, 140s right now. So I'll watch it into the end of the day. But I would play it with options just because of the gap risk on this. I don't want to be in a short position and this gap's 20 or 30 points coming in on Monday. So we'll see how it looks. But I still think there's plenty of downside into 370s or more if it wants it. So that was GLD, and I think that was it for the trades for this week. And then I had some of my longer term. Oh, I didn't go over RGTI. RGTI was the other big winner this week. I did trim some out this morning. So I was basically shorting like into this move here, which was pretty painful to be honest. And we finally got this nice down day. I think I added a little bit on this day, and I added more on this day, and we got a nice gap lower, and I was able to get some covers. I think I got some covers off around 44. And then we got a pretty big bounce back. I think it was testing close to like yesterday's closing area. Yeah. And then we got a nice pull in here. And I covered some more actually back into 44. So I have about maybe a little bit more than half a position. And I want to see this down into the low 40s. Like I have some bids out into like 42 down to 40 if this decides to take a roll. But what I think is most likely going to happen, because this is a big 2-day move. We had a red day here, then a big red day. I mean, this was like a 15% down day, and then a big gap that's kind of backfilling and back testing this 47.50 level, as well as a 10-day. So we could see a couple sideways days and then see it make the second leg lower. So I do want to hold some of a position for that. And if we start getting bounces back up into like the 50, close to 50, I would be looking to re-add to my position. So we'll see how that plays out next week. But a bounce back into 50, looking to add. Otherwise, I'm looking to carry this down into the 40 and lower for some more covers. And I think if I remember, I was looking at the weekly. If you go back, like, I mean, a 50% retracement is back in like 37, like all the way down here. So there's a lot of downside if this wants to give it up, and I think it can give even more than that if it really wants to. Because I mean, this stock has no business being up at these prices. All right, so that was RGTI. That was an awesome trade. Did have to sit through some pain with it, but ended up playing out really nicely. HEMS, this was a major stinker trade. I had to take a stop on, so I sold some puts on this. This was a big breakout here. Obviously a huge failed breakout. I sold some puts on this. I sold the 50s, I believe. And I covered some on this day, and then I was hoping that this would hold maybe another sideways day or two and then make another leg higher, but obviously today it's getting crushed, so I had to stop out on the balance of those. So that was HEMS. Then we had the CRM I sold some on as well. Kind of the same situation, but I have better prices on this one because so this was gapping up, had some really good news, a big guidance update and share repurchase, like 7 billion or something. So I think I sold some of the 245s around 248. So I'm down a little bit on them, but not much. I think if this can hold around here, above the moving averages or a little bit lower, I'd be fine with them. It's for the end of October. But if this starts breaking down and breaks the lower end of this wedge, then I'll have to cut them. So basically below 236. All right, so we'll see how that plays out. Obviously not what you want to see on a breakout. And then, yeah, so that's pretty much all the trades for this week. And then for next week, we got some stuff to look forward to. We have Tesla earnings. I think that chart looks really good. Obviously, we had this big breakout here, and we've just been flagging really nicely, basically on the 10 and 20 day. So we'll keep eyes on this. Obviously, I don't want to be holding this into earnings, but this is setting up. I think if they can post some good numbers, we could definitely see another leg, maybe up to 500. So a lot of eyes will be on Tesla next week. That's definitely going to be on my radar. I still think PLTR looks really good. Just flagging here right under all-time highs. So if this wants to break out, this is a really nice base, like basically over the last month or so. So if this wants to catch a bid, break out over this pivot here, 186.26, I think I'd be getting long on that and looking for a push higher through all-time highs. So PLTR is definitely one I'll be watching. And then other than that, we'll be seeing what the indexes are going to do. Right now we're putting in a pretty tight week, inside week, after this big down day. My gut feeling is we're going to get another leg lower, just given how much volume came in here, how much froth there is in the market. I think we're due for some sideways to downward action over the coming weeks. Who knows if that will play out, but that's what I'll be looking for, where I'll be leaning towards as far as my bias is concerned. And so yeah, I'll be watching the index to play next week as well. I would love a deeper pull in to start chopping some stuff for the end of the year move. So hopefully we can get a bigger pullback. Maybe back into the 580 area would be really nice. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, so basically PLTR and Tesla are my main looks for next week right now. I'm still going to dig through some charts, see if anything else pops up. But and then obviously I'll keep tabs on the indices. And I'll also, GLD as well. I still think this has a lot of downside. So that will also be on watch for next week. All right, so that's it for this week. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will catch you all Monday morning.